There you go. Hi, everyone. Hang on. There we go. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the third and final in our fall seminar series with Dr. Harriett Edwards. And we're so happy that you're here joining us for our fall seminar series. And thank you to everyone for joining us. I do want to give a couple of quick announcements before we get started. The first is that just a reminder that we will have kind of a fall festival potluck here in Rick's 118 on Friday at lunchtime. It's 12:30 to 2. So we'd love for you to come, bring a dish to share, or just come and hang out and spend some time together. There's no agenda. We'll just be eating and hanging out with each other before the break and before the end of semester chaos officially kicks off. The second reminder is that we will have another professional development workshop on November 27th. That will also be at 12:30. And that is a seminar about preparing for your doctoral exams, preparing for your comprehensive exams. So for those of you who are faculty who advise students during their exams, or if you are a doctoral student, I encourage you to come to this workshop unless you've already taken your exams, in which case there's no need to come. But even if you're a first year, I think the workshop will kind of give you a good understanding of what the comprehensive exams are. We've developed some new guidelines, some new process, some new supports for students in the program. So we'll be sharing that on November 27th, and I'm happy to answer any questions about that. And so with that, before I hand it over to Dr. Edwards, I would like to read a little bit of her bio. Dr. Harriett Edwards is a full professor and extension specialist in the Department of Agricultural and Human Sciences. And she provides leadership for volunteerism in North Carolina Cooperative Extension, which annually engages more than 40,000 youth and adult volunteers. Dr. Edwards has previously served as president of the NC Association of Volunteer Administration, as the president of the Association of Leaders in Volunteer Engagement, and she serves as the Extension Military Liaison for North Carolina, and has worked with the Department of Defense, the National Military Family Association, and private funders to bring more than $14 million to North Carolina in support of military children and their families. Although I feel like that number is significantly higher as well. So Dr. Edwards has so much experience working with military families and around the area of volunteerism. She's going to tell us a little bit about her work and research, and I'm so excited. And thank you for coming, or thank you for being here.
Thank you, Annie. Obviously I need to update my bio. Sorry about that. So, but I am excited to be here to share a little bit. I thought about, as I was putting this together, that I'm a unique person in our department, and then I realized that I'm in a department of unique people, and so we all kind of do our own thing. And so I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about what I do, and some of it is research oriented, and some of it is just kind of the day-to-day, the things we deal with, the hats that I wear. And so when I thought about one of the folks that I work with had asked me about, it's like, I need a picture at the end of the day. And I was like, okay, which day? How do we want to do this? Because a day may be that ordinary, I'm just fine day, or it may be I don't have any more energy for this day, or it may be I need to do what kind of day. And so with that, I want to start a little bit about how I got to where I am, because I think that's one of the special things about working in the department that is kind of the academic home for 4-H and family consumer sciences. Is my experience with extension began when I was a 4-H'er. So I was a 10-year 4-H'er, started as young as I could and stayed in until they kicked me out. And so loved the opportunity to be in 4-H and was an officer and did all the things in 4-H. So my mom will tell you to this day that the reason she enrolled us in 4-H was because she didn't want us to be afraid to speak in front of groups, because it just petrifies her to have to speak in public to any size group. And so my brother and sister and I all have some form of teaching in our careers, and so I guess it worked. The 4-H thing worked. Once I graduated from Campbell, with a degree in English, which is an amazing degree that doesn't really prepare you for many specific careers. And so I had a job with state government, and in that had an opportunity to come back to school, and was so thrilled that I got to come to NC State to work on my master's in public administration. And once I got that degree, it qualified me to do work that I absolutely hated. Community planning, and I helped to write the state's first housing affordability strategy, which means that we took 80 pages of federal register guidelines and wrote a 900-page document about how our state was going to spend public money to address housing issues. It was painful for me. So I decided very quickly I needed to find something else to do, and so made connections and found a home back in Extension as a county agent, actually in Granville County. So when I was reviewing Joy's session, I didn't get to come and see Dr. Morgan's session, but she was actually one of my 4-H'ers. Yeah, so I am old. That started when I was 12. And so she was one of her mom was at the library, which was across the street from the extension office. And she was one of the best summer volunteers as just a little wee person. So I'm telling a little bit on her. But she, again, I feel pretty good about that success story. So that was kind of my starting point. And then once I was there, I had an opportunity to take advantage of taking extra classes and coming back to school. And so I was able to work on the doctorate. And Mike Davis and Judy Groff, some of you may remember those names, were instrumental in helping me to find opportunities to expand and grow and do new things. And so came out of the county into the state level. So it's been a good ride. I thoroughly enjoyed it. One of the realities for me is that I do a lot of different things. And so I work with volunteer engagement. I work with our state advisory system, also do teaching and advising, and then that military thing that we do. And so I wanted to just kind of hit on each of those things for just a minute. With the extension engagement piece, I think the easiest way to describe what I do is I'm an internal consultant. The county faculty recruit and manage their own volunteers. And my job is to work with them to have the skills to work with those volunteers. But I also am the one who gets those risk management calls when something isn't going well. They'll quote me as saying, volunteering with us is a privilege, not a right. And so that idea that we do terminate volunteers occasionally, not fun, but we coach through that process of how do we fire a volunteer. Sometimes we have to do that. But also helping them think about risk management items related to volunteer engagement. I also work with onboarding support and then with training around volunteer issues and topics. And sometimes those are positive, not negative. So I don't want to make it sound like it's all bad. Was recently able to do some training actually with SCS folks around volunteer engagement at the early career training that we did for extension faculty. So it's always good to interface with the county faculty around volunteer engagement. So then we also work with state advisory councils, and this is another place where these are simply volunteers in a different flavor of a different flavor. Our state advisory system involves about 3,000 volunteers. When you think about, there are 101 centers, and if each center involves 25-ish volunteers, again, in advisory capacity, then we're at between 2,500 and 3,500 volunteers that are serving on program committees or specialized committees or county advisory council. Then the state advisory council is 36 individuals who work with Dr. Bonanno to do a lot of advocacy work. They are our voice at the legislature sometimes, and they are also kind of our connection back to the counties. And as a land grant system, we're required to include an advisory system, and they are our response to that mandate means that we've got a very active council. They're actually having a meeting this week. So they have learned to use Zoom. That was a part of our education for that group, was making sure that we all were comfortable using Zoom in the pandemic. And so they have decided to keep using it and do some hybrid work. So that's kind of nice that they are comfortable with the technology and as volunteers are stepping up to use it. We also do training for staff and for volunteers around advisory systems. And so that's kind of another one of those pieces, one of those hats that I wear. In terms of graduate teaching, I do the 2 volunteer courses. One is taught each spring, either the basics of volunteer engagement. And that's a graduate and an undergraduate course. So we're actually splitting them out this time. I'm kind of excited about, I'll actually be doing for the first time in my career, a graduate course or an undergraduate course in volunteer engagement. That'll be the first for me. So navigating what that looks like, and also continuing to do the graduate course. The graduate course will be online, the distance program, and then the undergraduate will be actually a face-to-face. So looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to it now. I'm not sure how I'll feel about it halfway through, but right now I'm kind of excited. The contemporary issues in volunteer engagement is in the alternative or the alternate spring semester, and it is really a chance for graduate students to take a look at topics and issues related to how volunteers are involved in an organization and how administrators work with or handle our volunteers, and making sure that our organizations are ready for volunteers to be involved in our organization. So we look at a lot of examples that are well outside the scope of extension, because it's not unusual that my students come to these classes from places like parks, recreation, sports management, that also from sociology and some of the human science courses. So not always extension and ag ed kinds of folks that are involved in those courses. And then of course, advising graduate students. So some interesting work there. Recently had a student who completed her degree and did her research actually on advisory systems. So it's kind of nice that the work is kind of falling into place, complementing the work that she's doing. But then there's that military thing that takes up more and more of my time, and it is considerably more than 14 billion at this point. It's interesting though, I have absolutely no military background, and that's folks, you know, a lot of times they go, where did you serve? I wish I could have, was not my thing. The reality for me is in 2005, I was a co-investigator on a grant that there were 5 or 6 of us listed on there, and we were doing really cool things around helping teens connect with military families. And we had a little bit of grant money to do that. So it was some USDA money. And so on a Friday afternoon at 4:30, my phone rang. And it was Dr. Orr, who at the time was the director of extension. And I don't know that anybody else who was involved with that grant is on staff anymore. The folks have retired and gone different ways. But he was at that time of the afternoon on a Friday trying to find somebody sitting at their desk to answer a call. And I happened to be in Rick's Hall at my desk and answered the phone. I didn't, and, you know, you can see the numbers, and I was like, it's an NC State number, I'll answer it. It was Dr. Orr. And he very quickly said, I'm giving you a phone number and you call this person. And this person was a federal employee at USDA who was trying to find a report that apparently we had missed the deadline on. And so all of a sudden it became my job to make sure we got that report, and we got it. We got it turned around by midday Monday. We had it finished. We got it done. And from that point forward, I was the state liaison for military affairs. It was very new for me. I have no idea what I was doing as we got started with it, but it's been interesting and fun and quite a privilege to work with the different programs, and it has grown exponentially over time. We started with a program called Operation Military Kids, and that was back 2006-ish. And so from that point forward, it has grown and morphed and changed and become much more. We deal with about $3 million annually, and that is over the span of about 7 projects. Varies from one year to the next, depending on how USDA and DoD are working out their dollars. Important to realize that USDA and the Department of Defense have a federal interagency agreement. And because they have that agreement, DoD is able to allocate funding that is legislatively given to DoD. They're able to transfer that money over to USDA for us to do some of the projects that we do, the grant programs that we do. That IAA, that interagency agreement, also exists between the different services. So Department of the Navy, Department of the Air Force, Department of the Army, all have similar agreements with USDA, so they can transfer money individually, and the Department of Defense can also invest money through USDA for dissemination and work with military populations. So it creates a lot of paperwork, but it's some neat opportunities for us to do some really cool things. Project DS, Youth Extension Service, is a project in our department that was funded for 1 year at a time, and it's now been operating for a little over 13 years. And it is a project that Dr. J.C. Johnson manages for us. And then we have some folks, Dr. Myra Moses actually works out of Maryland, so remote. Candace Hackney is one of our team members who works over in Farrell, and of course Beverly and Anita work over there as well. Candace is our mentoring expert. She works with our interns, and then Beverly and Kavita are our bookkeeping and administration. Beverly is our internal travel agent. She books lots of airline travel for our folks. The program is funded through Yellow Ribbon Reintegration Program, which is a part of DoD. And it's about, with this project, essentially we recruit interns and come in for a 1-week orientation. After that orientation, they go back to wherever they're in college. We don't, it's not a placement that requires they move here. So they come in, get their training, go back to wherever they are, and then there's a system online for them to tell us which weekends they are absolutely not available. So it doesn't matter to us if they got an exam on Monday, if they can't be here, or if they've got a wedding that weekend, or if they just can't do it because mom said no, whatever. Whatever weekends they can't do, we need to know that. And then our Yellow Ribbon folks will request our interns who come and provide experiential learning activities. They are not childcare providers. We're not qualified. We're not screened in a way that makes us appropriate to be childcare providers. So we are line of sight supervision. So their personnel always are in the room with our folks monitoring the situation. And our interns are doing really cool interactive games and activities, primarily around STEM and leadership, but also focus on things that are like stress management and helping to understand deployment. Because sometimes when you talk to a 5-year-old about your dad being gone for a while, it doesn't make sense. So trying to help them make sense out of how to be okay in the circus that is sometimes a military family. And so the interns go to these different events. One of their favorite places is Orlando. They do a lot of their family activities there. We've done events. Our interns travel. We never send an intern alone. They always travel at least 2 at a time. We have sent as many as 23 interns to one location because they had over 2 or 3 kids. So military families register, come to that site. The adults are over there doing the adult things. They drop their kids off. There are childcare providers who are managing the childcare parts of it, and our folks are managing the fun part. And so we hang out with them. Our interns are paid for each day that they're teaching. So come work a weekend, make $300. We pay for your airfare. We get you there. We reimburse you for your meals, so no cost, and you get paid a little something. One of the cool things that we've been able to do is some research that the program is 2-pronged. One piece of it is that we're supporting military families with those activities, and the other piece of it is that we're providing college to career transition training for those interns. And so because there are some limitations on what you can do in terms of research when you're working with military projects, they have their own IRB system, and it takes about 2 years to clear. And so rather than fight that battle, we don't try to manage. We collect a little bit of program information and kind of responses from the kids. And other than that, we're not researching these kids. We're not going, but we do some research with our interns. And one of the things that we studied and figured out is that even 10 years after they've been in our program, even if they only serve 1 year, they do have an opportunity to sign on and stay with us. Even if they only stay with us for 1 year, they're able to cite specific ways that the experience impacted their capacity to transition into the world of work. They're better at working in teams. Their supervisors recognize their ability to accept and to give constructive feedback. So they're learning to communicate with one another. They're learning to deal with one another. One of the coolest things, we had an intern who, in the process of the survey work, the research, he said, it was kind of neat because my grandmother had never flown and she was in an airport. She called me and her flight was canceled and I knew what to tell her to do. So some of the things that they're learning are not the things that necessarily translate into work, but they're things that translate into being able to function at a higher level. And so to feel good about that. So a really neat program that, again, has kind of a twofold approach. Candace's job is to work with the interns to identify mentors. So if they come into our program and they think, I want to be a social worker and I'm going to do this because it's really cool, it lets me be with families, but I want to do social work, then they identify a mentor who is in that field already. And they go through a series of activities with that mentor. We've actually had students who came to us and said, I'm changing my major. This is not what I want to do. Not necessarily what we want the outcome to be, but again, it gives us a way to think this is working because they're figuring out before they invest all this money in this project that this is not where I want to be. They don't graduate with a 4-year degree and then figure out I need 2 more years of school to do something different. So that's Project Yes, kind of in a nutshell. A lot going on there. We also have in our group the Air Force 4-H Youth Development Specialists, and we have the Navy 4-H Youth Development Specialists. David Britton for years was in that Air Force position, and he has transitioned into something a little bit different now. J.D. Jordan is in the position for the Navy, and she actually has retired out of the University of Georgia Extension System and come work for us with the Navy position. And the Navy is actually, those of you who follow military things are looking at it going, why do we have the Navy? So that is the one branch of the military that we do not have in North Carolina, Navy. The project actually started in Tennessee because, believe it or not, Navy regional headquarters is in Tennessee. Didn't make sense to me, but I'm good with it. And so they were having issues around the whole idea of remote work, and that was before COVID. So it was at a time where remote work was kind of an odd arrangement, but we were experienced with it because we had the Air Force position for more than 20 years, almost 25 years. We've had that Air Force position. And so when they were having trouble lining it up, I just in passing, this is another one of those, I happened to be in the right chair at the right time, just in passing, understood they were having trouble. And I said, we'll take it in North Carolina. We already do that for the Air Force. Well, the next week we had it. So we have the Navy position as well as the Air Force position. So working well. Jenny's a great employee. She lives in Bogart, Georgia. So right outside Athens. So those two positions support the idea that, not the idea that, the requirement that, the mandate. Navy, Army, and Air Force require that their child care services provide 4-H club activities on every base and installation globally. Require it. It's a part of their inspection system for their child care programs. And so these specialists kind of link extension to the child care providers on those bases and installations to make sure that they're aware of what a club looks like, how to say the pledge. And sometimes it's as simple as that. How to access resources, where to get curriculum, how to use our curriculum. Our curriculum is, we think, easy to use, but sometimes for other folks, and they're having to interpret it, figure it out, find it. We try to make it as easy as we can for them to use it. The beauty of it is, if you're a kid who's in Texas and your family gets, PCS, it's restationed to Korea, when you get there on that base, there should be an emblem displayed somewhere that looks like home. And so it's that familiarity and that sense of belonging. We interviewed a child who had moved through like 6 times in not so many years. She was leaving Louisiana, and her mom was being transitioned to Washington, D.C. area to the joint base there. And one of the things she said to us very specifically was, I'm just glad I don't have to give up my project. I get to keep doing my project. So she was leaving friends, but she was keeping her project. that's kind of cool that we're able to provide that. And so Air Force and Navy specialist positions are here at NC State. The Army specialist position is actually at Kansas State. That there's a person for each of those three services. We've not convinced the Marines to sign on yet, but we're working. So hopefully we'll get them on board. The Department of Defense decided this year that they needed a separate position for each military extension education. The challenge they were having in the Office of the Secretary of Defense at DoD is that's where they set programming and policy. And so when they are setting programming and policy that impacts all the services, it was problematic because they were making things up and thinking they understood extension and having to call people to get answers to questions. And they said, you know, we need somebody on our team that can sit at the table and help us think about this before we start doing the policy work. And so we competed for this funding and were successful in getting it just as our freeze hit. So we're in the process now of getting that position numbered so that we can recruit. So we are going to be looking for somebody who understands both extension and military to fill that position. And our goal is to have it filled by January. So we're hoping that human resources will cooperate and move forward even with the holiday schedule. So we're excited about the new opportunity there for that one. It is brand new money for this year. We also have the SIFAR, Children, Youth, and Families at Risk. And if you really want to mess with the military family, tell them that their kids are at risk. Because it doesn't feel good. I was like, no, we take care of our kids, and they do. But by definition, those kids are experiencing multiple moves. They're experiencing times when they're in a single parent household. Some, because of military pay scales, are experiencing food insecurity. So there's a lot of ways that they fit into that definition of at risk. And so we try to manage for how that feels, make sure they understand that we are here to support them and to cast aspersions. The particular piece that we have, all those other programs that I mentioned before are funded through Department of Defense or money from the individual services. This particular project, the SIFAR project, is funded with money from extension. It is kind of extension's skin in the game, right? All the services are putting money in from their side to make sure that we are able to do the programming we need to do with their folks. So extension puts money out to say, from a professional development and technical assistance standpoint, we're going to put some money in. And they put in about $500,000 a year. And with that money, it's typically awarded on a 3 to 5 year cycle. With that project, Dr. J.C. Johnson is involved with it. Dr. Myra Moses, again, is involved with this one. Myra's background is in instructional design, and that's where her dissertation was done. Her research for her dissertation is around those concepts, and she is incredible at the whole concept of reflection and learning. And so any place that we have design work around curriculum and instruction, we try to make sure that we include her, because that is just her wheelhouse. This grant actually gives us room to do some evaluation work. Dr. Casey Mull at Purdue University is the person who helps us to coordinate the evaluation piece of this. David and Jenny have small portions of their salary invested here because we're able to piggyback. If we're going to do if Jenny's going to do a naval visit and we're also going to be in the area doing SIFAR work, we're able to complement one another with the work. Casey is helping us with a return on investment study. And that is kind of one of the things that I'm just to shift gears a little bit and say, we may be, that may be an opportunity for us to reach out to others in the department, because we began the effort with looking at 4-H money and 4-H agents working with military families to see what our opportunity was for comparing what the services were investing and what they were getting in exchange for that. But what we're finding is that it's a whole lot more than that. We've got folks who are doing, we've got master gardeners involved, home bases and installations working with the kids. And there's no military money involved in that. It's extension doing what extension does. We have FCS agents who are working with family resource management programs. Again, no resources from the military side of the house invested in that, and no other money from USDA. It is just simply local agents doing what local agents do and serving this on. And we didn't do a very good job capturing that investment from extension to compare to kind of what the services are investing. The services are investing several $1 million each year, but what they're getting back is much more than that. So Casey's working with an economist to figure out how do we take what we started with the 4-H piece and really look at the bigger picture of what extension as a whole is investing in the military partnership. And so it may be a place that it's an opportunity for us to work with others in the department to think about what are the ways that we're supporting military families that we may not be aware of as a small team here. So some things that we do through the partnership, we do a national military conference that it's virtual. We did it for the first time, of course, in 2020 when everything had to be virtual. And we had over 600 register and registration versus attendance. We had about 400 attend. So that's still, we felt pretty good about that. So we've continued to offer that each year, and that is for both military and extension folks to participate in a 2-day training event with keynote speakers and sessions and interaction, question and answer, some breakout rooms for consultations and that kind of thing. We do monthly Zoom meetings where state liaisons are allowed to share successes and to ask questions and just to kind of network. And then we also have a series called Third Thursday Together. And we started that just kind of on a whim, trying to figure out how do we offer training at a time where, you know, at least in the continental US, it's a convenient time. And then with permission, of course, record it and locate those recorded sessions where you have to register to get to them. They're not necessarily public. So we started Third Thursday, and it's not, we don't have huge numbers in terms of attendance, but we have consistently 25 to 30 people showing up on a third Thursday for about an hour. One of the cool things we're able to do is the SAFAR funding gives us resources that we're able to, if you're in attendance, in all likelihood, there are definitely door prizes that are learning tools, but there are typically resources that are provided for everybody who's in attendance. So I'm happy to share that schedule. Third Thursdays, 2 o'clock. This month we're doing astrology, I think. Personified Leadership is a leadership training that Michelle Cummins, if you're familiar with training wheels, you have to go through her certification process to use her personified leadership materials. And we had a team that went through that certification, and we're able to offer that for our extension folks who are working with the military. And we also do experiential facilitation training. So working with primarily extension staff around making learning engaging and active. So this is painful because we should be playing a game with thumb balls or doing something. So we offer that training as a part of our SAFAR project. And we had just last week our first cohort met for the first time for our Military Leadership Academy. This is a group of 16 folks who applied for and were screened and accepted into a leadership training program. And they will do some self-examination. And so part of it is about individual leadership, but they'll also look at leadership in communities and organizations. And so they will meet together 3 more times for a series of 3-day events and activities, also some sessions in between, some books they have to read. It's pretty intense, but they've all signed on and agreed to marking these days up on their calendars. And so we're excited about that opportunity through the SAFAR project. Finally, I think this is the last one. Operation Homeport. And this is actually a Navy supplemental staffing project. If you were to look it up on the NC State system, it's the Navy supplemental staffing project. Operation Homeport. Homeport is actually a naval term. And so we have an opportunity. David Britton has agreed to step over there as our interim project director. And will actually be hiring into that position. It includes JC Johnson. JC has a very specific skill set. He is retired Air Force, so an incredible asset for our partnership. But he also has an incredible skill set for financial management, financial systems, contracting. So all those things, I'm very grateful to have somebody on the team who just, that's what he enjoys doing, and I enjoy that he enjoys doing that. And then of course, Myra helping us with the training aspect. We have the design, orientation and onboarding aspects. Kavita and Beverly also support this project in addition to Yes. Kavita is accounting, bookkeeping. Beverly again is helping with all those airline tickets and those kinds of things, all things administrative. And we have a vacant recruiter position that we're actually I should be in personnel today. I was getting ready to advertise that position. Now, Operation Homeport is very different than Yes. It is an internship program, and the Navy is poised to fund for appointments of 120 days or less, so 3 to 4 months. We are recruiting interns to go and basically work in child care services. They either are working in school age care or in child care centers. They have to be a high school graduate, whether that's a GED or a diploma. They have to be at least 18 years old. They have to be proficient in English. They have to be able to pass a physical. You have to be able to pass a federal background check. And so it is an opportunity for these folks to go onto installations globally. Right now we have 3 in Italy. Can you imagine 3 months in Italy? And the Navy paid for the airline ticket to get them there, and it paid for the airline ticket to get them home. You're staying in Navy lodging while you're there, which is essentially an apartment, small hotel situation. Some of the meals are provided when you're working. Some of the meals you bear it on your own, but you have access to all of the support systems that are on the base. So medical systems and the commissary and restaurants and the movie theater and the bowling alley, all the things that are on base you have access to as a contract worker while you're there, wherever there is. There were at my town placements in Cuba. I'm not sure that that's still on there, but I mean, how cool would it be? 3 months and you get to go hang out. So we've had folks in Coronado, we've had folks in Bethesda. So it's kind of runs the gamut. Wherever there are child care programs with Navy, we have opportunities for placements, and so we are recruiting interns for that project. And it essentially is work experience for these folks. And then, you know, I'm not crazy. I think the Navy would love for these folks to decide they want to come work. But part of it too is an opportunity for folks who may be interested in working with either social work or in childcare programming to kind of get a taste of it. It's also an opportunity to kind of get in quicker. If you're local and trying to get into some of these childcare positions, you have to wait for the federal background check, and that can take 6 months. On a good day, it should take 6 months. With this program, we're in an expedited process, and it gives us a chance for you to take to do the federal background check. This is the fingerprint check, but you're doing an expedited version of it. So you can get in and be in a line of sight supervision position. So you can be actually on the base in a position, even as you indicate, gee, I'd love to stay and do this, and they can begin the process for the longer one, even as you're working in limited capacity. So it's a really neat project. We were fortunate to get it, and it's been challenging. It's a bear, but we're excited about it, and we've got big plans for this one. So a couple of things that I did want to, while I've got folks listening a little bit, we are recruiting Yes interns. They are very specific about how they recruit those, and there's a process. It's an NC State application. We have a website. I'll share that information with you. And we're recruiting OHP interns. Those are kind of the 2 things that, again, that's kind of the low-hanging fruit of, if you know students who are looking for a gap year opportunity or who have a summer open and aren't quite sure what they want to do, we've got an opportunity. So I wanted to definitely mention that. One of the other things that I am as I was working on this, I do recall that there were efforts at one point to work on the food insecurity with military students. And I'm not sure where that one went. So I'm gonna be, I actually have my suitcase over in the corner. I'm leaving from here to go to the airport on my way to Washington to for a program managers meeting. And while I'm there, I will be in the room with the folks who are working on the food insecurity project. So I may come back with information about opportunities there. Or efforts there, whether it's a funded opportunity or whether it's an opportunity for I know as I was working on this, it's when it kind of that reminder of I don't think I ever checked on it exactly. So we'll check on that. So now you know why my picture. So that's kind of where I am. So I don't know if there are any questions, any comments.
We have folks online. If anybody online has questions, you can drop those in the chat, or you're welcome to come on. I do have a question, and this sort of relates to what Dr. Morgan talked about last with her presentation. It's clear that like your programs have grown over time, and some of it is about like being in the right place at the right time. But how do you balance saying yes, because you have said yes to a lot of things and it's led to a lot of big, incredible work, but how do you balance that with your own? Like, yeah, how do you decide what to say yes to, what to say no to, what you can take on, what you think?
I think the biggest thing for us here at work is yeah, I mentioned JC as a forte for the business aspect, and Myra is my instructional lead. And so I have an incredible team. So before we applied for the Navy project, we sat down as a group and said, how does it fit? If it doesn't fit, then let's not play with this because it's complicated. And so we kind of every time there's an opportunity, we really kind of stopped. And whether it was via Zoom or whether it was sitting in a room together with whiteboards all over the place to say it doesn't fit, and if it doesn't fit, then we're probably not going to do it. And I do have an incredible team that's very supportive of trying new things and wanting to grow the portfolio. So yeah, it's the team is the most important. Now balancing my work at home, my husband will tell you it's not balanced. That I'm a person who will sit there with my computer in front of the football game. That way I'm in the room where he is, football game's going, but I'm working, right? Not always fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly.
It's really hard. And I think it's really hard. It's something for like, graduate students to think about too, is your
Yes. Lots of parts.
Does anyone else have questions?
Oh, I love this stuff.
I know.
It's great work.
I'm actually tired of thinking.
Well, I think if we have no more questions, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording and just say thank you so much to Dr. Edwards for being here and for sharing with us and for your work. It's just wonderful. Like I said, I've been so excited to hear about this because I keep seeing all the new things and it's amazing. So thank you.
Hard to keep up.
Yes, it's hard to keep up with from the outside. I bet on the inside it's
like the duck on the water, right?
Yeah.
Like that, anything underneath.
but thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Stuff.